Hey everybody, welcome to this week's edition of D3 Live, the Internet of Things. Today, I couldn't be any more excited about our guest, my dear friend Lisa Qualls, who I've known for longer than I want to think about. Lisa is, she's so immersed in the tech space, it's ridiculous, and has been for a long time. She spent years at Sprint working in the telephone industry, telecom industry, and then she left Sprint and started her own business that she built into a tremendously successful small agency. And then she was wooed away from that adventure by the team at IBM, who said, "You're too smart to not be working with us." So Lisa is here today, and we're going to be talking about cloud technology and cloud computing. And if you're one of those people who's thinking, I think I kind of know what some of these acronyms stand for, and I think I kind of know what cloud is, and I think maybe I'm using cloud technology, but I want to know how I can use more cloud technology to power my business, this is for you. So welcome, Lisa. Great to have you.
Thank you, Shelly. That was a heck of an introduction, and I genuinely appreciate it. And I am just honored to be here in your presence, my friend.
Absolutely. So let's get started and really just talk. Why don't you just talk briefly about what cloud is? Because I think that, you and I talked about this in advance, and a lot of times people think that, it's some fluffy thing, and yeah, well, it's not. So tell us, give us an overview of what cloud technology really is.
And it's really interesting because cloud has evolved over time. Back in my early telecom days, we kind of helped build the cloud from a telecom perspective, connecting different devices together. And then through the internet and through advanced networking and really through advanced broadband connection. So if you think about it, back in the day, you had to dial up, and we were really kind of choked out from being able to access technology. And really, when I differentiate or help people understand what cloud is versus what their desktop is, on your desktop you install things. In the cloud you access things. And that's really, to me, the easiest, simple way to differentiate between what's a desktop, local networking. You can get into lots of engineering verbiage. But at the end of the day, I install things on my desktop, but I access things on the cloud. And so within that, within the fluffy white cloud, early in my days, I was always a pain in the butt to engineers. It's how I kind of built my career at Sprint, I think, was I would bum out managers who would say, "Okay, I'm tired of you being a pain in my butt. I'm going to hire you so you can be a pain in other people's butt on my behalf." So that's how I moved up the chain. But it was because I would make engineers actually draw me what was in the cloud. They would always start off with the whiteboard, and they'd draw the line to this big white foldy thing, to another line, to a triangle, which resembled or was the like telephone at that time. But I'm like, but I want to know what's in that white fluffy cow. What is in that? And then you get this look like, oh, you don't have an engineering degree. You can't imagine, you can't start to even imagine what's in there. I'm like, well, just start drawing me pictures. So they would draw a box, and then they would draw another box, and then another box. I'm like, well, what's in the box? And basically those things back in those days were switches and routers, which you still have from an internet cloud perspective, but you also have servers and storage devices. And in this day and age, what's really interesting, I just was reading yesterday, it is to the 3 acronyms we put into the little teaser in the agenda. There's also now DBAAS, which is database in the cloud. You have business process in the cloud. And those things reside on black boxes that are sometimes called servers. Databases are held on storage devices. If I was to show you a picture of those things, they would all kind of look the same. They're in a data center in a big rack with shelves with little black, looks like DVR boxes. What runs on those things is software, which really gives you all these different capabilities that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But that, in essence, is what cloud is, if that makes sense. If I could draw for you, I would show you.
It does make sense, and to make you feel better, that's pretty much the foundation upon which I have built my career, asking annoying questions and continuing to ask them until we get to answers that make sense. So I highly recommend that as a career path.
I do too. I had a great mentor in life who once taught me that if someone can't draw it, they don't know it, and move on to someone who can. one of the best tips I ever learned early on in my career.
You know, I think that's great advice. My earliest mentor had a reputation for asking questions that people thought were too forward or embarrassing, or I can't believe you would ask somebody that. And I remember him looking at me saying, Shelly, don't ever be afraid to ask questions. That's the only way that you're ever going to get answers. And you know,
Absolutely.
it is the people that are tenacious enough to ask questions that nobody else will ask, or the people feel uncomfortable asking, that can get to the solutions. So it sounds like we had some good mentors along the way.
Yes, we do. We could probably do a whole other podcast on that topic alone.
Mentors, right?
How to be a successful pain in the ass. That would be us.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know what? We could maybe use this as a passive income stream, because we could give certificates. We could take people through an education process and teach them how to be a PITA. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So you talked about this a little bit, and just briefly about the different kinds of clouds that exist. But let's talk a little bit about some of the clouds that exist today and some of the business applications for those. Okay,
Sure.
So I even know, to me, the easiest one is SaaS, and that's an acronym that people throw around all the time. But I think a lot of people don't really understand what that means. So let's start with that.
Okay, so SaaS is software as a service, and many of the audience probably knows that they probably use Dropbox or Basecamp. Those are software as a service. Going back to when we first started off about accessing things versus installing things, back in the day you had to install Microsoft Project or you had to install Microsoft Word. Now you can access those kind of documents or capabilities through cloud-based applications such as Basecamp, Google Docs, those type of exist for, especially in the startup space, to not have to go buy, if let's say you have 3 or 4 people in your startup company, versus having to go buy those really expensive software CDs you get at Best Buy, you can literally start up and have a project management tool like a Basecamp free. You know, you can do one project for free. I think that's the other real cost benefit to these cloud-based applications, is that not only you can get them free, but you can also do freemium, where you get them free for 30 days, try it out, see if it works within your culture, within your process. If it does, great, then you start paying a monthly rate. It usually grows with your demand of what you need from it. So you may start with a few projects, so you pay a small amount, but then all of a sudden you start growing and getting uber successful and you have hundreds of projects, well, then you pay accordingly.
Right.
It's a fantastic way to grow your company, especially if you're cash flow sensitive, without having to make a big risk and investment for something you may not need down, until a year down the road. It allows you to grow into it. That, from business owner mentality, that's one of the greatest benefits beyond collaboration and all the other things we can talk about. But just from a pure cost profitability perspective, which should be first and foremost in a business owner's mind, these kind of cloud-based applications give you that flexibility to grow to your wallet size.
Well, and to give you some examples from my own business, we use SaaS. We use SaaS products. We use an application called FreshBooks to do all of our invoicing. We use HR.
Yeah, Christy actually designed a logo for FreshBooks.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been a huge FreshBook fan for a long time. We use FreshBooks for employee time tracking. We use it for our invoicing. We use QuickBooks product for bookkeeping. We use we use so many different ones of them. So there's some HR applications. We're researching right now some inventory applications for a website that we're building for one of our clients who wants to manage their inventory that way. So there's just so many. So you're probably using a lot of SaaS applications right now that you're not even thinking about. Another example is, say, when you buy a computer, and it used to be that you had to buy Microsoft Office if you were buying a Mac or and you wanted to use Office, and so you had to buy those disks, and then you had to remember where they were and all that sort of thing. And now, when you want software, you just go to the App Store and you buy it. Well, that's a SaaS product as well. So I think a lot of times people are using things that they don't really realize are is what we're talking about. So let's talk about some other cloud
So I
products.
think SaaS has been around for a while now, and I think most people are more familiar with that. But I think where the one of the early or newer capabilities that's really exploded, and I know this is an area that IBM's really focused on too, is platform as a service. Really opening up the opportunity for developers to innovate much more quickly, to have access to code that they don't have to start from scratch. That really helps them accelerate their development cycle. It may also introduce new capabilities that they can then integrate in existing things they've already developed, giving more bang for the buck with things that they're offering to clients. IBM just came out recently with something called Bluemix that's opened up to it's an open source development community. It's leveraging their software cloud. And it's really phenomenal how the marketplace in just that ecosystem has exploded in just the last few months. They started beta testing it, I think, earlier this year. They just launched general availability earlier this month, actually. And what it does for the development community is pretty incredible. So if you are a business that's into developing mobile applications, internet applications, and you kind of have a long development cycle. I mean, I remember the days of where it could take 3 years to roll out a new product. People are doing it in 18 days now, sometimes in hours. It's pretty impressive, and it's these open source cloud-based type of platform as a service capabilities that are available now are helping enable that.
It's kind of like agile, the principles of agile. You can conceive it, build it, launch it, tweak it. And I think the other thing that's so cool about this is that especially in the developer community, the whole crowdsourced information sharing knowledge base is really important. Even going back to an example is the early days of Twitter. The developer community and the user community are who made Twitter what it is today. And we created hashtags and we created use cases and we created these things. Then developers built things off of that platform. So I think this is a really an important step in the technology space, because I think this is really how the brains of today work and collaborate very well and springboard off of one another and different ideas and things like that. Everybody today is not focused on reinventing their own wheels.
Right. And another great example is, and not to make it an IBM commercial, but most people are familiar with Watson, which is the high-performance computer that won on Jeopardy years ago. They've now taken that code that created Watson and put it into this Bluemix development cloud. So now developers all across the world have access to that kind of high-performance computing analytical capability. It's pretty exciting stuff.
So it's a geek paradise.
It really is. It is. Paradise. It is. You can get your geek on real easy in the platform as a service space, for sure.
Wow, we love it. Okay, are there any others that we should talk about?
Yeah. So let's wrap it up with infrastructure as a service, because if you recall when I was talking about what's in the cloud and all those boxes and servers and storage, those are heavy investment areas. So as when we talk about small and mid-sized businesses, it used to be kind of defined by employees. But really, from a technology perspective, we need to reevaluate that and define it based on capacity utilization, because that's what we get into as infrastructure as a service. So it used to be megs and gigs and terabytes, now petabytes and exabytes. It's there's a lot of small businesses that are literally creating hundreds of compute and store all of that data. Do I really want to go buy $1 million box on my own? Or is there a way that I can leverage someone else's investment and share with them? That's where you get into infrastructure as a service kind of cloud capabilities. And that's where we start talking about the public cloud versus a hybrid cloud versus a private cloud. The public cloud would be, I don't want to invest in any of that equipment, so I'm going to connect to an Amazon cloud or a Google cloud or Rackspace or Media Temple or an IBM software and let them deal with the building of it and the security of it, and I will, again, just access it. I will send all my stuff to them, and they will do all that for me. That's the public cloud. The opposite of that would be the private cloud, which says, I'm a really big time company. I'm going to have, hundreds of terabytes of data, or I have financial requirements, I have HIPAA requirements, so I really want to own that on my prem. I want to have complete control of that. So that's where you get into building the cloud within data centers that then opens up to your employee base to access that infrastructure. So that's a private cloud because the company owns that equipment, they manage that equipment, they maintain that equipment, but it enables cloud capabilities for their corporation so that employees can share and have access to the software and the platforms like we earlier discussed. Then you have what's really the emerging area that me personally I'm spending a lot of time in right now, and that's the hybrid cloud, and that's where you start talking about a mix of those things. So I want to maintain some portion of my infrastructure, but I want to leverage the efficiency and the simplicity and really the elasticity of what a public cloud gives me. Meaning I have data that spikes. So I have a pretty consistent, I'm a retail shop that, 9 months out of the year, I know kind of what's going to happen. Then we get to the holiday season and all hell breaks loose. I don't want to invest in all that infrastructure for 3 months, but I need to have a cloud. So I connect my data center to a public cloud that allows me to throttle back and forth. There's something called software-defined storage that provides software capabilities that allows a company to sit there and manage and maintain their own equipment, but say, okay, when we spike to this amount, I want you to automatically tier it over to the public cloud, or I have this data that may not be as important to me right now, so it can be moved over to the public because I don't need to access it as quick as maybe I will need on my private cloud infrastructure. So that's where you get into hybrid, and that's where we're seeing a lot of growth right now because it gives a lot of flexibility to companies to handle that spikiness in data, which is happening even more. The growth rates for some of these companies is crazy. I mean, we're seeing some companies with 6 petabytes of data year over year in growth, and then they need the flexibility that a hybrid cloud might be able to offer them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just seems like that's a smart business move. Not everybody needs, and I think too, you have to have a budget and you have to have a staff to have your own, to choose your own route. And so this is smart. It's economical. Good. It's good business sense.
Right. So to kind of summarize all that, if you think about it from a business model perspective, the software as a service applications really kind of help your business run from a day-to-day HR, finance, project management. From a platform as a service, it really helps your development team. It might help you connect, when you think about social mobile connections with your clients, having developers who have access to all that great technology and rich code helps you with that. And then from an operations, more of your traditional IT function, that's where infrastructure as a service really plays a part.
Very cool. Okay, I'm going to, we talked, I wrote a post earlier this week and talked about, to me, cloud is table stakes for business today. You need to be using cloud. I don't care if your business is super small, medium-sized, or enterprise level. And one of the things that you and I have talked about is how you can use cloud for kind of strategic reinvention. And you can use cloud for strategic reinvention. And so what I want to do is see if you can you give me any kind of a little bit of a case study or something you've experienced where you've seen somebody or you've worked with somebody or you know of somebody that that has leveraged cloud and that has actually done it in a way that's allowed for them to strategically reinvent themselves?
Sure. I think when we talk about development and the life cycle of that, there's a company that, actually I'll use an old case study, but to me it's one that speaks volumes. So when you think of a company that's looking at this from an employee perspective, from a when you're thinking about social collaboration, you think about it from an external point of view. How does my company interact with my clients? But from an internal, knowledge management has really taken on a new twist from an internal perspective. And how can I easily share knowledge and information across my employee base that's oftentimes growing in geography as well as out of the office, but into homes, and you have your employee base has been taken outside of, I can just yell over the wall at you. I'm 100 miles from you.
Right.
So when you think about knowledge management, this is an old one, but just off the top of my head is a GE case study where they literally saved like $1 million in 1 year because of implementing this social collaboration capability within their corporation that allow people in supply chain to talk to people that are in engineering to share that there was already a PO or an existing vendor relationship that gave them exponential percentage savings. The engineers weren't aware of that until they got the information through this collaboration tool. They were getting ready to write a whole PO and a separate contract relationship with the same vendor, and was not going to get near the percentage points that supply chain had already negotiated and taken advantage of. Every company has their silos. Even the vendor themselves, probably the person who negotiated the contract with the supply chain was a different person than who negotiated the contract with the engineer.
Right.
So the engineer was able to get this tip that said, hey, don't do that. Let's leverage this existing contract vehicle and get, 60% more off. But that right there, I think, saved them $300,000 in one transaction just by having this social collaboration capability. You think about the ability to do chat. Like at IBM, we use something called same time chat. Mm-hmm. I know there's lots of different chatting technologies, applications out there, but that's a form of cloud-based software as a service done within a corporation. Those are actually becoming external to the corporation as well. I know our inside sales teams and our client reps actually are able to leverage that same time application that allows them real-time chatting capability with employees. Also, now they can use that with their customers.
Cool.
So, being able to have that real time, you think about we're always in the sales world, always be closing, and time is not a friend. So being able to have that real time connection often saves you deals, which translate into millions and millions of dollars. So there's just a few real examples of how innovation. You think about from a going back to the developer aspect again. I know a company that's in mobile application development. They had to go and they had to create their own infrastructure, their own connection with Apple to go through the whole Apple testing. I don't know if you've ever been through a mobile development process, but early on it was quite a headache. Took forever, lots of hoops, lots of red tape.
Right.
Now you can leverage these cloud-based platforms that already have all of that in place. You simply put in your idea or your code, and it takes that on. That takes that out. So you think about cost savings, you think about time savings, you think about speed to market. You're going to get revenue faster. That all exponentially comes to significant profitability improvement than what you could have had without leveraging those capabilities.
So really, what we're talking about is not only strategic reinvention, but it's leveraging what could be a competitive advantage. And I think that's really where the small to mid-sized business can win in this space, competing against companies in some instances that are much larger. When you're leveraging the cloud to help develop that competitive edge, I think that makes a big difference. And I think the other thing that's really important, that again is it certainly isn't exclusive to small to mid-sized businesses, but we have a knowledge base of employees across companies of any size that are nearing retirement age. And so if we can start using some of this technology to get their knowledge into these applications so that it can be shared, or when you're thinking about it from an agile standpoint, I'm a big fan of developing T-shaped people, so you're not relying on just one person that has the knowledge that you need, that when something happens, when that person decides to leave, take another job, whatever, it can leave a lot of companies in a bad situation. So taking advantage of this kind of technology takes knowledge, and that doesn't mean that people aren't important, because people will always be an important part of the equation. But instead of it just being in my head and having that information reside in an application, I think it's crucial to the lifeblood of your business, I think.
You never know who's going to win $1 million lottery tomorrow and say, "See you later, bye." Plus those ideas or that information that's in your head, as smart as any one individual can be, your creativity is always limited with what your experience in life is. So you may have information, but then when that goes into my head, I may have a completely different perspective or point of view, and we can evolve those ideas. We can take them to new levels, reach new heights with them, with a shared viewpoint versus just one person's baseline of experience. So that to me is the other critical component when you're sharing, that my idea now becomes exponentially better because I shared it with you and we both benefit from that. So taking that kind of philosophy versus knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is only going to gain in power the broader and more important it becomes. And in order to do that, you need to share it with other people.
Right. Well, and I think, too, we used to, from a business standpoint, we used to have geographic boundaries on how and where we did business. And, you work for IBM, but your corporate headquarters is not, your corporate headquarters right now is in your office, in your home. And so and regardless of whether you work for IBM or any company, being able to connect with coworkers, being able to connect with vendors, being able to connect with team members or people that you supervise or whatever, it just makes doing business so much easier. And I think that's a huge thing.
And I think the other critical point too is it allows you to mature in a faster way. You think about analytics. We didn't really touch on that too much, but feeding back into the reinvention, but also having the analytical power to make better, smarter, faster decisions. When you're leveraging cloud-based type of platforms and analytics, and like I was talking about, having access to something like Watson high-performance computing, now when you've got that app out there, you can collect that data. Not only can you collect it, but now you have a place that can analyze that, can help you predict from that. It allows you to gain that knowledge faster without having to do all the significant investment of going and hiring the 30 smartest people in the world. They're going and building millions of dollars worth of infrastructure. You can now have that amazing predictive power based on actual facts and real data at your fingertips in a much more cost-effective way. And if you start thinking what that can do for you to be that much smarter with real-time information, you're no longer guessing, you're no longer making assumptions, you don't even, you're not dependent on the 45 focus groups you have to put together. You have it all right there, right now, real time, and you can make those immediate adjustments on the fly, which again gives you that competitive differentiation, gives you that speed to revenue, and you're doing both of those things in a much more cost-effective manner, and it really improves your chances for success.
Well, and I listen to you in this conversation, and I feel a lot about cloud technology the way I feel about the allocation of marketing dollars. And, we can make you a success, absolutely, but we can't do it if you don't budget for it. And the same is true with cloud. And you have to, first of all, you have to understand what the opportunities are and where you might be able to integrate cloud tech. And as we've discussed, there are so many different ways that you can bring cloud into your business operations. no matter the size of your business. But you have to budget for it, and you have to know, you have to be able to find the right vendors, you have to be able to develop the right relationships, you have to figure out who to trust. Talk to us as we wrap up, just a little bit about what the cloud marketplace looks like. And one thing I want to say specific to IBM, I think that, IBM is a huge company. And a good friend of mine speaks on a conference circuit regularly with me, and one of the questions that she's asked all the time is, she speaks on content strategy, and one of the questions she's asked all the time is, well, IBM's budget, I mean, it's so huge. Well, of course you can do all this cool stuff, but I think that you and I have not talked about this, but what I know is that IBM is a very large company, but many of the solutions that you guys have developed and that other cloud vendors have developed are perfect for small to mid-sized businesses.
Absolutely.
So if you could wrap up with just kind of what I want people not to be afraid of IBM, because I know you serve a small to mid-sized business market. But secondly, tell us really what that marketplace looks like and where somebody goes to start.
Sure. So, with IBM, you can go to ibm.cloud and you can see all the capabilities and options that are available. And I think that's one of the things from a IBM marketing perspective that we're continuing to try to get better at, is helping small businesses understand we're for them too. I know there's a perception in the marketplace that everything we sell is millions of dollars, and we only go after the Fortune 500, and we're just too big for the small to mid-size. And I would say there's nothing farther from the truth. We really are trying to make an investment and to reach out to the small mid-market, because we have SoftLayer. When we made the SoftLayer acquisition a year ago, that was really the goal, was how do we revolutionize IBM and then help the marketplace see us as a nimble, agile provider. And because that's really critical in the small to mid-market space. They don't want a cumbersome, lots of process, red tape company to deal with. They want someone that they can go and access really easily and get what they need when they need it, and not have to pay millions of dollars to get it. Right. SoftLayer, Bluemix, those are some of the products available that we're trying to walk the walk in that space. Amazon cloud capabilities are out there that also are very popular with the small to mid-sized market. Google has a cloud service that's available to the that really focuses on the small to mid-size. You have things like Rackspace, MediaTable for website hosting. We didn't really get into the hosting of your website, but if you have any kind of transactional type of website that's going to be hammered or having to deal with the spikes of the 8 to 5 time frame versus the midnight to 6, having a hosting provider that can handle those spikes without you having to make an investment for the highest spike can save you lots of money too. And those Rackspace and MediaTemplate type of companies provide you those kind of capabilities. So those are just a few of the big companies out there. I would encourage, as you're evaluating the marketplace, in addition to price, because I know for small to mid, price is always a top priority. It was for me when I opened my company. But also look at security. Look at, do they have 5 nines availability? Do they
are they going to be around?
Are they going to be around? I mean, there was a company late last year that some big companies were dependent on, and they gave a 30-day notice, and they shut down, and it caused a real problem for a lot of companies. So look at, do they have the long-term investment? Are they a long-term player? There are those of us that fit all of those requirements, so those options do exist. Look at things like, do they have a graduated pricing plan that will grow with you so you have a low entry to test it out? Do they have a freemium option where you can try it first before you have to invest in it? What's the contracts around the terms of signing on? So just factors to consider when you're looking at these cloud providers, that it's more than just price. Security is definitely critical. How do you get to manage, maintain? Is it easy to use? Is it a drop-down, plug-and-play? Or
What's
is it
the learning curve?
Right. Do I have to use CLI command line? Know your own baseline of technology knowledge and make sure that you can use it. Because if you can't use it, then it's really a waste of money. And I know a lot of times the marketing, the website can be really sexy with all the bells and whistles, but also ask yourself, am I going to really use all those bells and whistles?
Right.
You may not need that. You may just need baseline capability, and that's it. Don't pay for something you're not going to use. and make sure that you're going to use it from a simplicity and actual functionality perspective before you invest. And make sure it's secure and uptime. I could go on and on what to think about.
Well,
lessons learned from painful experiences, let me tell you.
Believe me, I have those same painful experiences, and I try to help people avoid those as much as humanly possible, especially when it comes to this kind of thing. Well, we're out of time today, Lisa, but I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy busy day to join us. You're awesome. I so appreciate all the information you shared. You can stalk Lisa online at lqualls444. Is it 4? 3. It's right there.
4 fours.
4
yep,
fours.
4 fours.
And you can find Lisa on Twitter. You can find Lisa on LinkedIn. I encourage you to find her and connect with her. She is terrific and one of the smartest people I know. And thank you so much for joining us today. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, everybody.